County Councillor Atkinson, 6 months into this job and 6 months since you promised that every decision you took will be viewed through the prism of benefiting the people of Lancashire, or whether or not it benefited the people of Lancashire. Yeah. What would you say if residents turned to you now en masse and said, what have you done for us in the past 6 months?
Road defects, which was the key thing that we stood on, that was doubling every year. The number of road, sorry, every 4 years it was doubling. And we've reduced those by 42%. Tens of thousands of road defects have been completed. We've just engaged on an efficiency review that will come to Cabinet next week that is saving an additional £100 million. And that saving is equivalent to £260 for every household with a Band E property. If we didn't do that, on top of the other 100 million we have to save, people will be paying over £500 a year extra in their council tax. So we're working really hard to deliver more efficient services. We are delivering on the priorities that people want, but we are constrained by ever-increasing demand as a result of government legislation in special educational needs, in adult social care. We have legal responsibilities, and you know, we don't agree with some of them, but we have to do them. I'll give you an example. We have 10 pupils through SEND, special educational needs, in some of the most prestigious schools in the country. We have 6 at Russell and 4 at Stonyhurst. And one of those pupils is costing £93,000 a year. And there's nothing we can do about it because of the process set up by central government. So we have to stay legal, we have to do what we have to do. But in order to create that capacity for those things that people care about by roads, we've got to be more efficient.
Sticking with council tax for a second, obviously the council tax bands will be, or the council tax rates rather, will be published as part of the budget process. How are you looking at this stage? Are you thinking that you're going to have to increase it by the maximum amount, as has been the case in most recent years?
We're trying not to, but it's a bit early in that process. Just for context, Paul, last year, 17 of the upper tier councils, like Lancashire, that provide those key services, required exceptional financial support. That has now risen this year to 26, which is 1 in 5. If that continues next year, it'll at the same rate, it'll be 1 in 3. Local government is in absolute financial crisis. And what I feel many non-reform councils will do is ask for increases above the 4.99% that is the standard cap. We're trying to avoid a 4.99% increase, but we don't know where we are with that just yet at this moment in time.
On the finances, you talk about the efficiency review. So far, that's highlighted, I think, £22 million that is deliverable over the next 3 years, hasn't it? But as you've alluded to yourself, you've got over £100 million to find on top of the 103 million that was already baked into the budget that was set in February before reform took control.
The chief executive has told me he's confident we can deliver that.
But on the basis there's £22 million out of, you know, more than £200 million that you're going to need to save over the next 3 years, doesn't that just show that this stuff is really hard, and it will be difficult whether it was you sitting in that chair or any political party?
It's very hard. It's very hard. But we were elected and we're determined to do it.
In terms of the way the council was presented in the run-up to the election, yourself and Nigel Farage seem to present it as something of a basket case, but doesn't it, a financial basket case, but doesn't this just show that that wasn't the case, and that it is facing the same funding challenges as so many other councils? But unlike so many other councils, it had very healthy reserves to rely on, which would have been the envy of most other local authorities.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that statement. If you look at the debt in Kent, that is a similar sized county, it's about 400 or 500 million less. That's Kent County Council than Lancashire County Council. But the reason why there's that difference is that 548 million of that debt has been invested into bonds. So if we didn't have these government and corporate bonds, this 548 million, the debt will be similar to Kent. So from 1.2 billion, that could have reduced the debt down to about 700 million. Unfortunately, those bonds, when they were last valued in March, have lost 2/3 of the value, so they're only worth 204 million. So we cannot use those reserves to support the revenue budget, because for every 10 million pounds we need, we'd have to cash in 30 million and take a 20 million pound loss. And that was a decision that was taken over the previous 2 terms when the council was Conservative controlled. So it is a basket. Basket case is the wrong word. It has huge financial challenges that we do not have access to our reserves, but we're navigating that difficult situation. But fundamentally, and this is something even more profound, Paul, is that if that 548 million was invested in the money markets, we will be generating about 8 to 9 million pounds a year extra than we are from the bond yields, which are only 3%. So it's actually costing us those investments every year on our revenue budget.
I mean, I know the bond investments were justified at the time as being the result of the fear of negative interest rates, weren't they? So that they were seen as being protective against that eventuality, when at the height of the pandemic, that looked like it was going to be a real possibility. Is it not just an unfortunate circumstance rather than some scandal?
No, it's a total failure. And the reason it's a total failure is that why would you take out bonds with 97-year durations? So that means that money is locked away for 97 years. This is the council's reserves that it needs for a rainy day. By all means, take out a 5-year bond where you can have access to that money, but to lock it away for 97 years in some cases was absolutely balmy.
But you could cash them in early, couldn't you? I know you can't at the moment because you would take a loss, but I mean, they weren't locked away for 97 years.
Well, they are. That's the nature of a bond. That's the nature of a bond. The councils are not permitted to trade in investments. So what you're suggesting we could have cashed them in early would have meant the council was prepared to trade in investments, which is against the rules. So to take a 97-year bond is just wrong. That's the rainy day money for the council, and we now can't use it because you can't get your money back until the bond expires unless you're trading in and out of it, which is what councils shouldn't do.
So you couldn't have got it anyway. So even you couldn't have taken. It wouldn't have been accessible anyway, whether it was at a loss or not. You're saying it was locked away for 97 years.
If they bought 5-year bonds at that time, they'd be coming to fruition now and be getting their money back. That's the sensible thing to do in treasury management, particularly when it's the reserves of the council.
On the efficiency review, it's quite high level stuff, isn't it? There's not specifics in terms of services. So you're looking at contracts and commissioning and workforce and even issues like automation and workflow. They're quite amorphous for people to get their head around, aren't they, as to how that's actually going to affect the front line. Are you saying that it won't affect the front line, or it will only affect it in a positive way?
So what if we just take those issues individually? Since we came into office, we've started to really work on AI, artificial intelligence, to help our staff have more capacity. What we will achieve this year is the equivalent of improvements in efficiency of 285 staff. So that instead of employing 285 additional staff to cover areas where we've been left in a hole, such as SEND, we have a notice to improve under the last administration. Adult social care is the same. We're using artificial intelligence to improve the efficiency of the assessments. That's equivalent to 285 days. That's just a start. We've only been in power 6 months, and we've brought all this new technology in. It is our ambition, first of all, to run a balanced budget. That's what we said at Hustings that you were at, Paul. Everything was subject to a balanced budget. And we are desperately trying to make sure that we maintain those frontline services.
Talking about the balanced budget, one of the promises you made, you were quite specific about only making a handful of promises in the run up to the election. One of them was that you would put back in £30 million into roads that you were saying was going to be scheduled to be taken out.
We will be doing that.
You're doing that, so the books are in sufficient condition for you to be able to fulfil that promise.
Yeah. We keep our promises. You know what we said we would do. We're very careful what we said we were going to do.
You did caveat it, didn't you, about it only if it was possible once you saw the books, but you're saying it is possible.
Next year, that is possible, yeah.
Just finally on the finances, obviously, after you came to power, Reform nationally, we're talking about sending in a Doge team, as it was characterised, Department of Government Efficiency or Department of Local Government Efficiency in this case. I'm right in saying they never arrived in Lancashire. Doesn't that show they were never really needed? It was just the ongoing yearly process of finding savings, which is a difficult job, and you were canny enough to realise that, and you've done that for yourself. You've enacted that process internally, and this idea that you needed external people to come in and somehow put things right, that was not the case, was it?
Well, the Doge team in head office has been really helpful. They helped us understand this bond issue. They've also helped us understand the pension fund, and how we can reduce. If we can reduce the fees, the Lancashire Pension Fund is about £12 billion, and every year Lancashire puts tens of £millions in as a contribution to employees' pensions, and that's fine, and that will keep going. But if we can improve the efficiency of the pension fund by paying less fees out to investment bankers, it means we have to pay less in as a council. And that's a key piece of work that the Doge have been heading, which will save council taxpayers a lot of money by keeping the fees down for those investments, meaning that more money that's returned stays with the Lancashire's County Council's past and present pensioners.
One of the issues that has been hitting the headlines in recent weeks is the review of 5 of the County Council's care homes and 5 day centres. Closure, certainly not a foregone conclusion, but an option, and it's alarmed a lot of people, not least the families of the residents who are in those care homes and the users of the day centres. Whatever the rationale for that review, hasn't it been politically a misstep? Because it's been a terrible look, hasn't it, that people have had these concerns, sort of laid at their door, and the fear, whether you say it's justified or not, the fear that they very elderly people could be forced to move.
If we just look at those 5 care homes, I mean, first of all, we need to say that we're very sensitive to the residents. It's their home, and no decisions have been made. But the reason for the review was not just about the cost. I mean, that they've been neglected over many years and need significant investment, but also they're costing £4 million a year more than what the private sector can deliver, and the private sector has better quality accommodation. 3 of these 5 care homes require improvement according to the Care Quality Commission. One of them requires improvement to be a safe space. So there are significant issues around underinvestment in them, around the ongoing efficiency of them, and around the care within them. All I can say, Paul, is no decisions have been made. And when you're in a governance position, you have to look at things that are not, you've got to look at things where you wouldn't necessarily want to look at them because you've got to govern. But there are a number of issues with these care homes that we are looking at, but no decisions have been made.
But care isn't one of the issues, is it? Because even the homes that require improvement overall are rated as good for caring, and the families seemingly can't speak highly enough of the care that their relatives are receiving. That's why they're so concerned that they may end up in a private sector where the accommodation, as you say, may be better, but the care that there's no guarantee of.
Well, no decisions have been made, And I think you're trying to preempt a decision here, Paul. And
no,
I think,
certainly not. I mean,
yeah,
I caveat it by saying certainly not a foregone conclusion, but this is the fear that people have, isn't it? Once the process is in train, people's concerns are natural. You understand that they're natural concerns.
No, I understand. And we had the residents of one of the care homes at the council meeting yesterday. I thank you for coming. We are alive to this situation, but we have to look at this in the round, and we'll be doing that next year.
Just onto a couple of other thorny issues and two other things that were part of your pledges pre-election, local government reorganisation, which is this process of basically abolishing the county council, all the district councils, and creating a handful of new ones to replace them. You wanted a referendum on that from the government. They said no. But now you've put forward an option, which, as somebody who was very committed previously as the leader of Ribble Valley Council, very committed to the districts, and that those small local councils or smaller local councils, you've now put forward an option for two huge authorities being described by some of the opposition parties as mega authorities for the whole of the north and the whole of the south of Lancashire. What's the rationale for that? Surely you would want more councils, or as many councils as you could possibly get, to stay close to the system that you value.
So let's be absolutely clear, Paul. This was not in the Labour manifesto, and one of the first trips I made was to London to meet Jim McMahon, the minister, to ask for a legally binding referendum. He said it was not part of the process. So what we've done, we did a survey, and I insisted, it was only me that insisted, in a question going into that survey that said, would you like to retain your existing council? And 4 times as many people said yes, as opposed to people that wanted these unitary councils. So our position is this should not happen, but we're in a governance position where we have to make decisions. So I asked the officers to go away and to model all the business cases that were put forward in Lancashire. And the business case that delivers the biggest financial headroom, because I've just explained how all councils are heading into difficulty, was the north-south. Now, the reason why that financial headroom is important is in the survey that we did, people said the things they most cared about were street cleansing, open space, green space, and they're very local services that are discretionary. So if you don't have a council with the financial headroom, it's my opinion that you'll see parks closed, street cleansing neglected, because all the money will be spent on social care and send. So what this model did was give the most financial capacity to maintain those services that residents wanted. But fundamentally, we're changing the governance of how the council will be run. So although the council seems to be a big council, most of the decisions will be taken by area committees, which are very close to the people. So it'll have that advantage of local decision making with the strategic size needed to deliver these very complex areas such as special educational need and adult social care and children's services. And what we've also got to think about is when the council disaggregates, i.e. the county council, it had those efficiencies across the whole of Lancashire. When it splits into 2, or if the government chooses 3 or 4, you've got to have the key skills, whether it's a director of adult social care, a director of children's services, or a 151 officer, or a chief executive, to make those councils function. And there's not enough people in the country. So one amendment we made yesterday was to ask the government not to do this all on one day in 2028, when 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of staff, and 20 upper tier councils will be broken up. Because I think we'll get the most vulnerable children and adults falling between the gaps. But this is not what we want. But this is the one that gives most of the advantages that the county council currently has, which is that capacity and that efficiency to guarantee the funding for those local services that people care about.
Just briefly, you actually said at the full council meeting yesterday as well that you would actually quite like to see one unitary council for the whole of Lancashire.
I would. This is an historic county that's over 100 years old. People are proud to be from Lancashire. But again, with that local governance model I've talked about, it would have the advantages of a district council making those local decisions, but the capacity of the county council at a strategic level for those very, very expensive services that require specialist skills.
This is the question I was going to ask. Are you really just trying to recreate the two-tier system by the back door? You're trying to play the government at their own game?
No. Newton, the consultancy, has said that anything less than 500,000 will impact on the quality of care, that's people, in adult and children's services. So what will probably happen if you go for a 4 split in Lancashire, you will have a shared children's services and adult services between 2 councils. And what you then don't have is sovereignty. So you can have one council paying for other councils' residents. You can have a quango in effect with its own chief executive with no accountability to the council taxpayers. So what this model does, so that actually creates another county council, does the 4 model. This keeps everything, whether it's just strategic services or local services, within one space.
But it would be a model you would like, wouldn't it? Because it would be a county council in effect with area committees, but districts by another name. Really, that it would be something you would welcome.
Well, it wouldn't be. It'd be even more local than districts, because what the survey said was people didn't identify with the districts; they identified with the local towns. So these area committees will be based around towns. We'd have councillors that would have much more direct input into those towns, with funding, etc. So this is a way that gives the strategic advantage of the county council's capacity and has the local decision making all within one body. So you don't get this, it's them happening. But it's not something we want to do. It's not something the residents want to do. And at the end of the day, we don't make the decision. The Labour government makes the decision.
Something else you famously don't want to do is have an elected mayor of Lancashire. For many years standing, you've been resolute in that respect. It looks like it's coming, come what may, because the government could even impose one after 18 months of Lancashire having a county combined authority, which it has had since February. So you're looking at next summer, it could be imposed. Recently, you wrote to the government along with your colleagues in Blackpool, your counterparts in Blackpool and Blackburn with Darwin, to ask what Lancashire will get out of a mayor. But that was patently obvious, wasn't it? We all know what Lancashire will get out of a mayor because it's in the legislation. It's and the government's written back and pretty much said that, you know, it is the legislation. They've copied and pasted bits of it and said they look forward to hearing from you. Wasn't that sort of a delaying tactic too many? You've run out of road to stop a mayor, haven't you?
If the government want to bring a mayor in without the consent of the Lancashire people, that's up to the government. I have a real concern personally. This is not the decision of the reform group at Lancashire, that I've said for many years, to put all of that power into one person who makes all the decision making on strategic spending will actually mean that spending is directed to the population centres where there's the most votes, just because of the political nature. If that person is aligned to central government, they will also have that alignment of reselection for the mayor going forward. So I don't think that mayors help with devolution. I think it doesn't devolve power, it centralises power. So intellectually, I'm against it. But if the government wish to impose it, that they can do that. But what I would say is, we've asked the government to confirm what money we will get, and they've given us a response that doesn't quantify what we will get. It doesn't say you're going to get this much every year. It actually says, look what other people have got, and you can assume you'll get that. Now, that's not what we want. We want to understand exactly what we will get, because there's this misconception in Lancashire that if we have a mayor, we'll get what Manchester got or what Liverpool got. That is not a result of a mayoralty. That is a result of those large cities receiving investment from the Treasury. And the Shire counties have been neglected for years, where all the money has been funded, all the capital spending has been funded into the cities.
But other Shire counties have devolution deals, don't they? You can look at them and see what they have got.
But do you know that one of the things that doesn't get discussed about a mayor is a mayoral precept, where actually every council taxpayer will have to pay a fee to support the mayor's office. And that's a cost on families. So I don't think it's as simple as this is really good and let's do it. It's got to be discussed in the round, and we're partway through that process.
So just finally on that, the disadvantages you think would outweigh the possibility of Lancashire being the only place in the north without a mayor, which is what it's currently on track to be?
I think so. Well, I participate in the Great North with every mayor. So I sit at the table with Andy Burnham, with Steve Rotherham. So Lancashire County Council has its voice in that northern debate. Absolutely. But
not with the government, do you? You don't sit on the Council of the Nations and Regions.
No, no, we don't. And as I said, I think what we've got to do in Lancashire is understand what the financial benefits are to Lancashire in detail, instead of just assuming we're going to get something else.
Just finally, you'd probably admit yourself that this time last year you would never have expected to be in the position that you're in now. You were about to step down as leader in Ribble Valley, presumably leaving a local government career behind, and you've now ended up with one of the toughest jobs in local government. Do you ever regret that fact?
No, it's incredibly rewarding. It's tiring, the long days. And you're also aware, Paul, that I head up Reform UK, the local government association, where we have a London office. So yeah, I'm working very hard. It's a great honour, and you know, we really believe in what we're doing. And I'd ask anyone that wants to get involved, because local politics is very rewarding.
County Councillor Atkinson, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.